So today I want to show you a few ideas you can try that are inspired by the new Moog Spectravox, which is an interesting filter bank that allows you to process sounds and create unique results. I will quickly mention that I added the ideas from this video to the PDF of tips and tricks. I keep on updating, so if you are interested, it's available on my Patreon together with the project files from this video and from other videos I uploaded. Now the first idea is to have multiple resonant bandpass filters to have multiple peaks and process the incoming sound while moving or modulating the peaks together. Now the Spectravox has, as you can see here, 8 bandpass filters, right? But we will use for now just 3, so we will have 3 peaks, and of course you can experiment with this and add more if you like. So already you can see that we will use the FX grid for this, and I just have a simple repetitive sequence going. It sounds like this. Right, so this sound we will process. So we will use the XP filter. Let me zoom in a bit. Right, we don't need key tracking in this case. We can turn this off. And we will go again with the bandpass filter. In this case, a 2-pole bandpass filter. Again, we need this to be resonant. So let's take the resonance to about, let's say about 90%, something like this, just before it starts to self-oscillate. Right, we will send the audio to the filter, and to change later on the cutoff for all of the filters together, we will use the value module, right? And this I will set to be bipolar. Let's see if I can do this from here. No, I have to open this here. Right, so now the value module is bipolar, so I can move the cutoff left and right. Right, this will go. We will send this to the modulation input, and let's open this to about around 50 here. No need for more than this. Right, and now I can duplicate this so we have it 3 times, and then all the connections and all the settings are already copied with it. Right, now you can experiment with the fixed cutoff points, but we will go with the first one will be 250 Hertz. And then multiplications of 4. So the second one will be 1000 Hertz or 1 kilohertz, and then 4000 Hertz or 4 kilohertz. Now we just need to mix this. So I will use the mixer. Right, we have 1, 2, 2, and 3. If you want, you can also pen this, of course. Maybe I will pen the other 2 filters a bit left and right. And this will go to the output, and I will also send this to the spectrum analyzer I have set up here, just so you can see the different peaks and what's happening to the sound. So now I will play this, and here you can already see 1, 2, 3 peaks, and I can move them around together. They will keep the distance from one another, but you can see it quite clearly, 1, 2, and 3. Right, so now we are processing the sound with 3 resonant bandpass filters, 3 peaks that we can move together, and of course we can also modulate this or sequence this. Right, so here I have a few modulation sources set up. I have here a bipolar sequence. This can modulate filter a bit, and another LFO that I will use for the same value here, just to move it again a bit more up and down, to have a bit more variation. Right, now of course this doesn't have to be fully wet or processed 100%. We have here the mix control. This is again the original sound, and I can just blend this a bit. Right, again, just to add another layer of complexity, and of course we can also modulate this here. So I have here another sequence, modulation sequence that I can use. Right, and we added some movement with 3 bandpass filters. I have here a few voices that I can add, the kick, hi-hat, and snare. Another technique that can be quite fun is the idea of pinging filters. Now the Spectravox again has in this case 10 different filters, 8 bandpass, 1 low pass, 1 high pass. And each of them you can ping, which basically means bringing the filter to a point where it almost self-oscillates and then exciting it with a trigger. So let's really see how this works. In this case, we are using the polygrid, and I have already, as you can see, a few bandpass filters set up. Now let's start pinging them. So I will use ones for the first one. Let's say I will use the gates device. Right, this will be the actual input for the filter. I'm actually sending this to the input of the filter. Let's leave this 1, 4, and 6, let's say. Right, and it will sound like this. Right, we just get these gates going through the filter, but now I will start bringing the resonance up here, almost to the point where it self-oscillates, and listen to what happens. Right, we get a tone, we get a sound, we are pinging this filter. But pay attention to how many pulses we get. Again, I have just 3 steps set, but listen to how many pulses we get. Right, for each step we actually get 2 pulses, and that's because we are using gates and not triggers. So the filter will be pinged once when the gate goes up and once when it goes down. Now this is of course not wrong. If you like the result, you can leave it like this. But in this case, I would like to use triggers. Now if I choose a different setting on the sequencer, right, it will still not work right. By default it's set to gate. If I set this to pulse, right, we still get 2. If I set this to trigger, we still get 2 pulses. So what we need is under logic here, we have the gate length module, and I can just set it to be, let's say, 1 millisecond, so really short. And we get a trigger that is pinging our filter. Right, now the second filter I have here is tuned to a different note, right? You can tune the filters, and you can see this here. If you look here, you can see this one is tuned to A3 and the second one is tuned to E4. Right, so I have the second bandpass filter here tuned to a different note. Now the filters on the Spectravox actually are set to fixed frequencies. So you cannot really tune each one individually, but we can definitely do this in Bitwig, so why not? So now let's ping this filter as well, but now with a shorter sequence, let's say a 7-step sequence. Right, so again, I will use the gates device here. I will set this to be 7 steps. Right, and now for getting polymeters in the grid, we need a few more modules. We will need the phase counter, right? This will scan through the sequence, and since the sequence has 7 steps, I will set the counter also to 7. This will scan through the sequence, and now we don't need the phase precord anymore because we are using a different signal, so I just turn this off. And now let's say that the rate of this sequence, the resolution of this sequence will be a 16th notes, so we need the triggers module. This one here, set is to 16 because again we want 16th notes. This will trigger the counter. Again, the counter will scan through the 7-step sequence. And now all we need is to make sure that everything is synced. If we go to the transport playing here and connect this to the reset, every time we hit play, everything will start from the beginning. Also here we need to make sure we use triggers, so the gate length will be used also here. And this will go to the filter. Let's solo this. And again, I hit play and take the resonance up. And we get a tone. We are pinging this filter. Maybe change the sequence a bit. Right, something like this. So now we have 7 steps. And with the first pinged filter as well. Right, now again, another filter here is set to a different node. This is now A4. Right, so let's do the same here for the third filter, but with the 5-step sequence. So again, we need the counter, the steps, and the gate length. I will duplicate them. Right, the gate length will go again to the filter. In this case, we want just 5 steps. So the sequencer will have 5 steps and the counter will have 5 steps. If I solo this, and again, bring the resonance up. Something like this, and all together. Right, and I have here another filter, which is again tuned to a different note. This one is C5. And let's just use the triggers device. So first of all, again, we need another gate length. Right, and I will just, instead of the signal here, I will use the triggers directly from the trigger, so we get 16th notes. Right, and in this case, let's also modulate the resonance, so it will give us a similar effect like modulating the decay of an envelope. Right, let me already play this for a second. I will solo this. Right, we will do something like this. So in this case, we will use the steps module. Right, I will set this to 16. So we have again a resolution of 16th notes in this case, bipolar. Maybe randomize this a few times and let's see what this gives us. Right, something like this. So we have an interesting sequence here, sequence pinged filter. Right, listen to this, it's quite a fun sound. Right, so we have an interesting sound, an interesting rhythm. I will add some delay to this. I have here the delay 2. And I have a few more voices. Actually, one of them, the bass. If I unmute this, and let me start this already actually. The bass is also coming from a pinged filter, in this case a low pass filter, going through some wavefolding, clipping, distortion, right, with some modulation. So you can also create nice bass sounds with pinging filters. The last idea I want to show you is using bandpass filters to isolate specific frequency ranges of a signal and then using them for modulation. So here I have an ARP going, it sounds like this. Right, and you can see the frequency spectrum of the original signal. But I have the same signal going also through a bandpass filter, as you can see here. And you can see that I isolated a certain frequency band, and according to the original signal, to the movement of its timbre, this band will change also in amplitude, and we can use this to modulate other aspects of the sound. Now for this, we will need an envelope follower, this one here. On the Spectravox, each filter has its own envelope follower that will follow the amplitude of the different bands and will output a signal, an envelope in the shape of the amplitude. Right, so if I send the signal from the bandpass filter to the follower, and actually, you know what, before this, I would like to have control over the levels a bit and to amplify this signal a bit. So I will use also the amplify module, and let's also see this on the scope, right? Maybe make this a bit bigger so we can see this better. Right, so now you can see I play this sound, and again this is just from the bandpass. I will amplify this a bit. You can see, right, we get a signal that changes according to the frequency range of the original signal. When the original signal is darker, also the amplitude of this envelope will go down. Right, if I change the times here on the follower, we'll get something a bit smoother that we can then use for modulation, something like this. And you can see we really get the amplitude envelope of the signal. Right now again we can use this to modulate different things. So for example, if I send this original voice through another filter, another low pass filter, I will use the Moog one here. No need for resonance, no need for key tracking. Right, I will close this a bit. And now I would like to use this signal to modulate the cutoff of the filter. So again, only when the original sound going through this bandpass is brighter, or according to this bandpass signal, the cutoff will move. And for this we will need, under the inputs outputs, we need the modulator out. I connect this from the scope already. Right, and now I can modulate the filter. Right, and now we added another layer of complexity. We can use this also with, for example, distortion after the filter, and again use the same signal to bring the distortion up a bit. We can even add another layer with noise. So if I use a mixer before the filter and I mix in noise, maybe make this also stereo, take the level all the way down and use the same signal, the same envelope to bring in the noise. So only when the sound is brighter, we get more levels on the noise. Right, so again we added a few more layers of complexity. And again we can do this also with multiple bandpass filters. So here, let me stop this for a second. I have here some drums, just a sample. Right, but I will not use this as the sound itself, but rather for modulation. So this is going to another FX grid, as you can see here. I have 3 different band sets with 3 different bandpass filters. Right, you can see the cutoff is set to a different setting. Right, so each bandpass filter will isolate a different frequency band of the drums. Right, and each of these filters has its own amplifier and envelope follower. Right, so I can use each band to modulate different things, and in this case I'm using it to bring different voices in and out, again with the rhythm of the drums. I have here a sine oscillator, a union through a filter, and a triangle. Right, so again I will hit play. This is now just the drums. You can see how the envelope is reacting to the different bands. And now if I bring in the mix, again this is the FX grid, if I bring in the mix up, you will start hearing how it will, with the same rhythm, bring in the different voices. Right, so again, I'm not using the drums as the sound source itself, I'm just using it, splitting it through different bandpass filters, using envelope followers to bring in, with the same rhythm, to bring in other voices. Right, I will bring back this arpeggiator from before, and I have here a few more voices, kick, hi-hat, and a bass drone. Right, and that's it. I hope you will go and explore some of these ideas. Again, come join us on Patreon and Discord. Thank you for watching. Cheers.